Good evening, members. Before I open the meeting, please can I ask any members or officers in physical attendance with an electronic device to mute it to avoid feedback, please. And can I ask that any remote participants keep their camera and microphone off unless they wish to speak, and ideally do not use a camera facility at all, as this can affect the quality of the IT connection. Please note the meeting will be recorded and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy. The recording of the meeting may be added to the Council's website. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use a SBC or KCC laptop to participate virtually. If you join using the link on the website or on a mobile and tablet device, it is not possible to identify you and you will not be recorded as being in remote attendance. Members could ask you to speak loudly and clearly into your microphones and to switch them off after speaking, otherwise remote participants may be unable to hear the next speaker. So welcome everyone to this Policy and Resources Committee meeting, including any visiting members, those attending remotely and members of the public. I'd just like to welcome the following staff: our Chief Executive, Larissa Reid, our Director of Resources, Lisa Fillery, Head of Finance and Procurement, Claire Stanbury, Head of Place, John Johnson, Policy and Engagement Officer, Janet Dart, Communications and Policy Manager, Phil Sutcliffe, who's attending remotely, Democratic Services Officer, Kelly McKenzie, and our Head of Environment and Leisure, Martin Cassell. Thank you very much indeed. Chief.
Can I also advise members that the Deputy Chief Executive, Emma Wiggins, is also online? Thank you.
Thank you. Members, there is no fire drill planned this evening, so if we do hear the alarm sounding, we're to take it as a need to evacuate, and if you follow me, I'll be the first out of the building. What I will say is please do not use the lifts under any circumstances. Is there anybody that would need assistance should that emergency arise this evening? Okay, thank you, members. Could I now ask for any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies received from Councillors Lloyd Bowen, his substitute is Councillor Leanne Moore, Councillor Kieran Mushuk, his substitute is Councillor Chris Palmer, and Councillor Mike Baldock, his substitute is Councillor Monique Bonney.
Thank you. Members, could we now approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of November 2025? The minute numbers are to follow. As a correct record. Yeah.
As they have not yet been published online, can we agree them? I haven't seen them. I don't know if other members have seen them.
Thank you. You're absolutely correct, Councillor Joyce, and apologies there for any confusion. So they haven't been published yet, but we'll take them at the next meeting. Thank you. Members, can I now ask for any declarations of interest? Councillor Joyce.
Me again, Chair. It's a disclosable non-pecuniary interest. I assume the reduction in grant refers to citizens' advice in the budget item. And I am a trustee and director of that organisation.
Thank you very much. Okay, members. Any matters arising from the previous week? Councillor Joyce?
Sorry, Chair. I know there's someone else in the room that was nominated by the council to fulfil such a role as well. I don't know if they wish to make a declaration or...
Could you be a little bit more explicit?
Yes, we nominated last, is it February, make appointments? Myself, Councillor Last and Councillor Golding. Obviously, Councillor Golding's not here.
Thank you.
Chair, I believe it's up to the individual to decide whether or not they wish to make a declaration, because in the past there have been some cast iron ones and we've been told unless the individual feels like declaring it, there's nothing you can do. But it's very good of people to point it out. Thanks.
Yes, it is indeed. Thank you. Members, any matters arising from the previous meeting that you'd like to raise? Okay, thank you. We move on to the next item then, which would have been the Planning and Transportation Policy Working Group, but we're still waiting for publication of the minutes from that. So we move on to item 7, which is for noting, which is the Forward Decisions Plan. Agree to note it? Thank you very much indeed. So now we move on to item 8, which is the Financial Management Report mid-year 2025-26. And I'll thank our Officer Claire to step into the breach. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this report shows the expected 2025-26 financial position, and it's based on activity to the end of September and forecasts for the remainder of the year. Members will recall that the budget for 25-26 includes a take from the budget contingency reserve in order to be in balance for the year. The current forecast suggests that the take from reserves will be £26,000 less than planned, so we will be taking approximately £260,000 from the reserve at year end. Table 1 of the main report shows the variances per department, and Appendix 1 breaks this down further. Any variances in Appendix 1 of £20,000 or more are explained in detail in the report. There are 3 main areas of overspend predicted, which I will talk about. Housing and community services are forecast to overspend by £340,000, which is due to the cost of providing the homelessness and temporary accommodation service. This is partly driven by insufficient government funding and a consistent high demand for the service, despite efforts by the team. We now own over 50 properties that can be used for a temporary accommodation, most of which have been purchased within the last year. Although we're buying houses in good condition, it still takes time and some initial resource to bring them into use, so the benefits of these properties take some time to realise. And that's why we're seeing an overspend that we hope is a one-off position. As we approach the end of the financial year, we will review whether it's appropriate to fund any of those one-off costs from the temporary accommodation property building maintenance fund, but ensuring that we leave sufficient money in there for future years. It's not expected to be an ongoing financial pressure, but more of a one-off whilst the properties are first purchased and brought into use. Planning services are currently forecasting to overspend by £241,000, and this is primarily down to continued problems with recruiting to senior posts. There has been success with filling some vacancies, especially at the lower levels, so the service are now looking at ways that they can fill these vacancies in a different manner. And looking at things like mentoring staff into the more senior roles over time and then recruiting to the lower level roles where we've had more success as those become vacant. Obviously, this does come at a cost, and that's reflected in this forecast overspend and also in a temporary growth that's included in tonight's draft budget proposals. Environment and Leisure Services are forecasting an overspend of just over £500,000. £183,000 of this is down to adverse variances within the environmental services area due to a reduction in garden waste subscriptions and the cost of replacement and garden waste bins. These are addressed in the proposed 26-27 budget through adjustments of income targets and the proposed introduction of an administration fee for new garden waste bins. Leisure Services have a projected overspend of £288,000. £150,000 of this is an expected overspend on leisure centre utility costs due to tariff increases over recent years, and £162,000 is due to grounds maintenance costs where some savings have been made, but not to the extent that was included in the budget when it was set in February. Both of these issues are addressed again in tonight's proposed budget. Offsetting these overspends is a projected underspend on corporate overheads and capital financing of £1.2 million. Interest and capital financing is expected to underspend by £460,000. This is down to delaying the need to borrow for capital projects through the use of internal borrowing, and interest on investments also continuing to do well whilst the bank base rate remains elevated. Again, this has been reviewed as part of the budget process for 2026-27 and will be reviewed on an annual basis, taking into account interest rates at that point in time. Corporate costs are also forecast to underspend by £755,000, and this is primarily down to excess contract budgets that have built up through inflation calculations over time, but that we now believe are not required. As inflation fluctuations have now reduced from what we've seen over the past couple of years, this has been thoroughly reviewed as part of producing the draft budget, and an appropriate saving has been put forward. In terms of capital, we have spent £6.6 million in the first 6 months of the year, which represents 29% of the capital budget. Details of the spend per project are provided in Appendix 2. The main areas of spend so far this year have been the purchase of houses for temporary accommodation and the Beachfields project in Sheerness. Further spend is expected on both of these projects over the rest of the year, as well as potentially spend coming through for the development of houses at Cockleshell Walk, subject to receiving confirmation of grant funding, cost towards the end of this year and into next year. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Richard Palmer, please.
Yeah, thank you. I just noticed on page 15 it says about Highstead Park, £343,000. Is that an accurate reflection of the current state of play? Thank you.
Yes, it might have moved ever so slightly since then, but we were happy with that projection at that point in time.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else. Councillor Wise.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. This is more a comment than a question about this report, but thank you very much for going through that, Claire. Pointing out the overspend of £30,000 on the Rough Sleeper initiative. I think what's been apparent in recent years is that government allocations are always lagging the situation that we're seeing on the ground. And I know that there have been several government announcements around homelessness and rough sleeping, but quite clearly I think our service have achieved quite a lot of good work in this space, and to still fall short on that initiative by 30,000, which in the grand scheme of things, when you've seen some of the allocations that have been made for rough sleeping in particular to some authorities, is really disappointing that, you know, really the government could be backing us on that one. So not really wanting to make a proposal or recommendation here, but I just wondered whether, Chair, you could potentially look at writing to the local government minister to sort of outline some of the steps that we have been taking, perhaps with the Chair of Housing, Health and Community, to say that, you know, these are the proactive steps we have been doing, these are the successes we've been having through the changes we've been doing with this, and really we would like them to look properly at how they're allocating the funding so that this sort of thing isn't something we see repeated again in future, because I think it could have a real meaningful impact, and it's disappointing therefore if you know, we aren't able to accurately budget for this going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Wise. That's certainly something that I can do, and to be fair, without even needing a formal proposal for that.
I was going to say I'd second that if it's a formal proposal, but if you're happy to
I'm
do...
just quite happy.
Just say, I don't think I want to make it a formal proposal. If you're giving your agreement here in the meeting that you'll take that away with Councillor Perkin, then that satisfies me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members, could I have a proposer then for recommendations here? Councillor Palmer, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Wise. Those in favour? That's unanimous, members. Thank you very much indeed. Even though he's not a member of the committee. Okay, we now move on to agenda item 9. Which is the budget 26-27 and medium-term financial strategy forecasts. And I think it's going to be down to you, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you. So this year's budget was prepared by a cross-party working group with all groups invited to join the budget working group. Meeting started in June of this year, and the work was collectively done to bring the budget that is you see in tonight's report. The budget reported tonight is drafted without knowing the outcome of the Local Government Fair Funding Review 2.0 or the business rate reset. So as previously reported, the business rate growth within the current baseline poses a significant risk of loss of funding with the reset of the business rate baseline. which the reset is to remove and redistribute growth that has been achieved by councils since 2013-14. The losses are rumoured to be reduced with a transitional reduction over 3 years to be balanced with the fair funding grant outcomes. This is to ensure that councils do not face a cliff edge of loss of funding. At present, we are working on a neutral position on grants and business rates, with the uncertain business rate grants currently reported at 2.9 million. That is shown as a separate line within the medium-term financial strategy. We have received a policy document on the fair funding review, but it does not give us the detail we need to understand the position for Swale. This is expected to be received in the week commencing the 15th of December. One thing that has become evident from the business rate reset policy is that the Kent business rate pool is no longer able to operate in its current format. The uncertainty on the baselines, the growth assumptions required, and the changes to the growth levies have meant that members of the current pool do not want to continue for 26-27. It is proposed that we revisit this position next year, collectively within Kent, to assess our respective positions and how that would balance with a new pool. This is the position that the pool members took when it was first set up, and they waited a year to see how things would work out when business rates were localised. We had to declare an interest in a pool to MHCLG by the 24th of November, and as the Chief Financial Officers at Cross Kent assessed the uncertainty and risk to render the pool unviable, we did not express an interest to continue the pool. It was further complicated by the fact that if we did express an interest in the pool, it had to be retained in the format that we expressed the interest in. And so regardless of the outcome of the reset, we wouldn't have then been able to change it other than just totally withdraw. So as there was no appetite for anyone to sign up to work together, there is no pool for 26-27. With all of this in mind, the budget currently shows a gap of £665,000. This position takes into account the proposed growth, savings and increases to income that the Budget Working Group have been dealing with over the summer and the autumn. As detailed in the report, the growth includes our cost of standing still with inflation and pay award assumptions on our existing contracts, shared service arrangements and staffing establishments. This is about £1.6 million, and with our council tax yield of only £417,000, you can see that the gap of standing still with just council tax income creates further pressures. It also includes the increased costs arising from our moving to our IT systems to the cloud. These revenue costs, although replacing some of our capital investment spikes, but they are more expensive on an annual basis. Also, the increasing cost of delivering our electoral duties, those are not just necessarily the elections, but actually the register work and the annual canvass, and the provision of costs associated for the Swale element of the work of local government reorganisation ahead of any costs to be incurred by the unitaries. Savings include the already agreed outcome of the public convenience review, savings from our triennial revaluation on the pension scheme, review of legacy assumptions on pay and inflation that Claire has already mentioned in the current year's monitoring report, where there was an over-provision in 26-27, an accumulation from previous years, and 1 year savings on the cost of borrowing, where we have managing our treasury management function and cash flow position to use internal borrowing rather than external borrowing to manage our capital expenditure. This is a reprofiling position only and not an overall saving on our cost of capital financing, but a delay to the requirement of the timing of the amount to be borrowed. It's a temporary position, and it's 1 year only. I think I've already said that, sorry. Income assumptions include the proposals around increases to the car parking tariffs of 10p an hour, the removal of the 30-minute tariff to be offset with the introduction of a £2.50 flat rate charge for evening parking. Moving away from the hourly rate charge from between 7 and 10 p.m, and a reduction in long stay car parking to support commuters and encourage longer stays in our towns. There is also an assumption on the increase in council tax to the maximum amount allowable under the current system to take the increase to 2.99%. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Gold, please.
Thank you. You'd mentioned those uncertainties about the business grants and government grants. Have you got an idea of the range of uncertainty? What the worst case scenario would be in terms of income and the best case?
Yes and no. We have a range of assumptions that have been worked up by consultants on the business rate position, and it looks our current position is 12.1 million, and we have three. I picked three. We've got more than that. That range between 5, 6, and 7 million pounds. The rumours that this will be offset by grant funding is the bit that makes it even more uncertain. So even though that looks like a huge amount of loss, we could gain that in grant, but it's such a big amount to be gaining in government grant is also incredibly uncertain. I'm sorry, that's not a very straight answer, but there's too many moving parts.
So sorry, if I may, just so I've understood, so the worst case scenario is we lose 7 million, but then the grant may make that up, but we don't know by how much that grant might make it up.
No, on all of those scenarios, so there is an assumption that.
Okay, so it's about 10 times the existing budget deficit is what we could be looking at.
Yes, which is what's been reported.
But that's unlikely.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We've got two visiting members here tonight, so I'm going to bring Councillor Whiting in now first, if I may.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak. As buried deep in the budget papers is the decision of the Environment Committee to start charging at 3 car parks in my ward, Queenborough and Halfway, and I was astonished to see this item back on the council's wish list just months after members threw out similar proposals. It was a bad idea before, Mr. Chairman, it's a bad idea now. Customers who support a wide range of small independent shops in Queenborough and Halfway rely on these car parks. The roads outside the shops have yellow lines and very limited parking. And to add a parking surcharge to hard-pressed customers and hard-pressed businesses is wrong, particularly during an ongoing cost of living crisis. There's a place of worship next door to the car park at Halfway. This decision introduces charges for those wanting to pray. And Halfway is an area full of busy takeaway restaurants. Each relies on the car park to allow customers to park safely to collect their orders. The proposed charges add £1.60 to the cost of each takeaway. And of course there's the primary school. It has on-site parking for staff and visitors, and it operates a one-way system for parents dropping off or picking up their children. The single-lane access, however, is shared by 2 other schools and causes massive congestion. And because of that congestion, a large number of parents choose instead to use the Halfway car park. This is a point backed up by the head teacher in his letter to me. Like me, he doesn't expect parents will want to pay £1.60 twice a day to drop off and pick up their children from school. He says imposing a charge will simply displace parents to the school car park and residential streets, which are already dangerously overcrowded at these times. Dangerously overcrowded, Mr. Chairman. In Queenborough, Castle Connections, the GP surgery, library, local businesses and some residents rely on the library car park, with the congested streets being their only alternative. Businesses are already working to the tightest of margins, and business rates, increased staff costs, the cost of living crisis. Many shop owners, takeaways, pubs, restaurants rightly fear that these new charges will be the tipping point for them. And a closed shop, Mr. Chairman, does not employ staff, and a closed shop does not pay business rates. Is that what we really want? I know I'm going to hear about parking at schools and libraries is all to do with KCC. It was said at the Environment Committee, but it's rubbish. Swale is responsible for on-street and off-street parking. Swale is responsible for planning consents for academies and shops and houses and businesses. So the buck stops here, not with others. The net income for running costs at the Ship on Shore car park with 48 places is, I'm told by Martin, about £5,000 a year. Halfway and Queenborough Library are a little smaller, but let's say they too make £5,000 a year, and the much smaller Park Road car park in Queenborough, say £2,000. The capital costs of the machine and signs, etc., I'm told is about £8,000 for each car park. So in the first year, in my ward alone, this decision will cost the council around £12,000. And if businesses close as a result, then the loss of business rates will wipe out future profits in the following year. And after that, of course, we know that SWALE is being abolished. So why create a risk for the sake of a few £1,000s when the status quo can be so easily met from reserves without demonstrable harm to this council or anyone else? Mr. Chairman, I've got petitions here collected in the last 2 weeks. They total 3,622 signatures. That's more than the combined majorities of every member of this committee at the last election, and demonstrates the anger against these new charges. If members do not remove them tonight from the budget, then we will see those thousands of people objecting when the consultation is launched tomorrow. Is this committee prepared to ignore that level of objection in the same appalling way that the Environment Committee ignored hundreds of petitioners just a couple of weeks ago? Mr. Chairman, I urge members to remove the damaging new charges from the draft budget before taking it to consultation, instead revising the heavily optimistic income forecasts and meeting any shortfall from reserves. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. I'm just going to bring our Chief Executive in.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't believe this, the policy decision to charge is a decision that's been made by a policy committee of the council. This committee does not have the power to overturn a decision, so it can't just decide to go against that policy. That would be an issue for the Environment Committee, who has made their decision. I think if you look back at what was said at the Environment Committee, the things that you've said about people having to pay to go to the library, people having to pay to go to shops, is the same in Faversham. And so the nearest car park to the library in Faversham is not free. The nearest car park to the library in Sittingbourne is not free. So this committee today is looking at parking charges for the whole borough, and that includes the car parks that have been agreed by committee to be charged. So therefore, what this committee can do today, this is saying they're going to send it out for consultation. We don't have, there has been no proposal for differential parking at the current time, parking charges. We don't have that in Swale at the moment. What this committee proposes the budget to full council at the meeting in January. This is just to go out to consultation. No work has been done on differential charging. So if a proposal was to come to do differential charging to say that you wouldn't charge for some car parks, then we would need to do rather a large piece of work on that. And that probably should be an amendment that would have come forward by a member of the committee, which, as far as I'm aware, hasn't. So I'm not sure this committee can do what you ask, which is to overturn the decision of the Environment Committee in relation to car park charging.
If I can, very quickly,
yes.
I'm very grateful to the Chief Executive, but when I mentioned at the Environment Committee that the decision it was making was a binding decision, that it would be raising car park charges, I was laughed down by people who said, no, of course, there'll be consultations, we've got plenty of time to change this. That's what I was told. And now this is the opportunity, actually, this Policy and Resources Committee can refer it back to the Environment Committee if it chooses to tonight, and give that Environment Committee the chance to reconsider the decision it made. Or we can take it to full council, but that's so far down the line, getting anything changed at the budget is more difficult. So either the committee, what I was told at the committee was wrong, and I believe what the Chief Executive said tonight. And I think that perhaps, Chairman, you should refer this particular issue for differential charging in this way, or not introducing these new charges back to the committee. But that's a matter for you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Chair. And with the greatest respect to Councillor Whiting, that's a matter for this committee, not for the Chair to refer it back. But I think given what the Chief Executive said, I don't really think that's an option because they've made that and they can't revisit that decision within this timescale. So the consultation that has started on that policy hasn't concluded yet, as far as I'm aware. Has it even started, actually, is a point.
Yes, so the formal the off-street parking order consultation will start next week. We were waiting for tonight so that we can run the other changes in car park tariffs at the same time. But of course, the consultation, as was discussed by Councillor Whiting, and when I clarified that, the off-street parking order consultation is not on the policy of whether those car park locations are charged. It's about whether there's any elements in there that the committee might want to revisit, having had feedback around timings, etc. So it's the policy decision to charge at 6 locations was taken at the Environment Committee.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful. So essentially, when the committee comes to look at that aspect afterwards, then some of the points that you've raised there, Councillor Whiting, can be made as considerations around timings, for example. But I think, given the introduction we had to this report about the draft budget that the cross-party budget working group has looked at in detail, there is a great deal of uncertainty still around local government finances. And I think it's fair to say the last government kicked fair funding way beyond the long grass. And it's something that, rightly, this government's now picking up. But the process through which it's had to do that still leaves us in a position where this council is having to go out to consult on a budget where we don't really know yet the full funding picture facing us, which does present difficulties, notwithstanding the progress that the budget working group has had on bringing the budget down, including difficult decisions around car parking charges. And so with those difficult decisions having been taken, there's still a substantial budget gap. And so, you know, we could be in a position where we just continually draw yet further down from the reserves, but with this uncertain picture facing us, that wouldn't be, in my view, the best decision for this committee to take. And we could go down the route that other local authorities unfortunately went down in recent years, of looking at sort of fantasy income targets, unrealistic projects to generate income, which I really don't think we also then want to be picking up issues with further down the line as well. I do welcome the reduction in the long stay tariffs. I think that's definitely to be welcomed, and I accept the point that that will be particularly good news for commuters, and it ties in well with rail fares being frozen. But I think really we need to wait before we make any other decisions around this for these consultations to close and for the Environment Committee to take on board the feedback and the points that Councillor Whiting has raised and the points that the residents who are signing the petitions wish to be a factor in those considerations about the timings in particular. But otherwise, I think, you know, members are welcome to come to the budget meeting with a proposal that would see parking charges removed for all car parks in the borough, if that's the route that they want to go down. And I'd look forward to a costed proposal from members to do that. Well, people are laughing, but if we have a fair parking policy in this borough, then I would welcome the opportunity to debate a costed proposal that removes parking charges right across the borough.
Thank you. I've got another visiting member, Councillor Nundy, who wishes to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is this issue about car parking charges has come up on multiple occasions, and it feels as though when it's the answer that we're going to start introducing charges, then there's no more debate to be had. But when we managed to stop it, there was always opportunity for further debate on that subject. In my ward, we have the Little Oyster car park. So it would be nice if someone could update me as to how many thousands of pounds the council intend on bringing that car park up to standards that we wouldn't be embarrassed to charge for. It's not tarmacked. The spaces aren't marked out apart from the disabled bays. There's very little, the grass around it isn't, I don't think is particularly well maintained, because I'd also like to know how much the Ship on Shore car park costs to redo, because of course before that car park had charges introduced to it, the council spent £30,000 retarmacking it, putting lines in. So when we're talking about it being, you know, £8,000 for the parking machine and it's made £8,000 in its first year, well, we're still at a deficit. There's still that gap because it costs more money to do the car park up. You couldn't charge some of these car parks without at least retarmacking them because they're not fit for purpose, quite frankly. They're handy for people to use, but the car parks themselves aren't up to a standard that I would feel confident in saying, yeah, we can charge people to park here. I'm really concerned about some of the local businesses that this is going to affect. I'm really concerned about the effect that it's going to have on, you know, independent small businesses on the Isle of Sheppey, particularly takeaways, because at the moment you can just park at the halfway car park, nip out, grab your takeaway, back into your car and drive off. You start introducing a half-hour parking charge, that puts prior to that, any calculation about how much money this is going to generate, quite frankly, is pie in the sky. Because if people don't park somewhere, you're not going to make any money from it. It really is as simple as that. I do think this does need to go back to the Environment Committee for further discussion and maybe a sensible conversation around how we can get around this issue, because this is going to cause problems, and it's all well and good getting a bit of money now, but if businesses start shutting down and you're not getting the business rates through, more to the point, we've got thousands of signatures on a petition. And I don't want to be the person sorting out that consultation if half the people that live on the island, which is about 20,000, all put in a consultation response saying no. And if they do all put in a consultation response saying no, and that's 20,000 people saying no, then that consultation is simply the management of protest. If that isn't going to be listened to, that's all it is. I thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nundy. Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, thank you. I did make a note on this, and I do feel that recommendation 3, I was going to ask, and I will propose that we, I may have to change it slightly, but the free car parks be removed from the draft budget proposal. I do feel that it's a step too far, to be quite honest, and I think I've often been at Policy and Resources where amendments have been put in and sent back. If that's not an acceptable amendment, then I feel that the proposal for the free car park should be sent back, or at least raised at full council so that all members have a chance to have a say. But I think we are stirring up a hornet's nest. I hear what both members have said, and they've raised points that I didn't think about, and I think it will have a big impact on businesses. And I think, personally, my amendment would be that the free car parks, as proposed in recommendation 3, be removed, the currently free car parks be removed from the draft budget proposal. That is a proposal I've put on the table. Thank you.
If I may, Chair.
Yes, of course.
The issue that we have is that the recommendation 3 notes the increase of the fees and charges. So it doesn't talk about charging for free car parks. It talks about the charges for car parking. So that's what I said about differential parking. We can't change the decision that the Environment Committee made to charge for those car parks. As Councillor Wise has said, when you're not making a decision tonight on, he didn't say this, but you're not making a decision tonight on what those charges are. You're making a decision to send the budget out for consultation. February is when you make those decisions. So to the recommendation as it stands talks about the increase in charges. It doesn't talk about let's start charging for car parks, because that decision has been taken.
Then if that's not an acceptable proposal, then I would make another proposal that the free car parks are returned back to the Environment Committee to reconsider their proposal.
May I, Chair? The difficulty we have with that is our constitution is clear that once a decision has been made by that committee, it can't be revisited for a period of time, and this committee does not have a, if you like, a call-in power to be able to. This committee cannot scrutinise the work of other committees. The other committees are committees of council, and therefore what those committees decide is a decision that those committees take. This committee could, if we went along that road, could have a look at all the decisions that every other committee has taken and say, actually, we don't like that decision, let's go and look at that one. We don't like that decision, go back and look at that. This committee is not, it is a first among equals, but what it isn't is a parent committee that has that ability to do. The decision was made. There has been no suggestion taken that the committee didn't understand the decision. I listened into the decision. There was a long debate on it. So the decision that committee has made is the decision. And if this committee or another committee dislikes that, whilst I understand that may be the case, it is not just a case that this paper is not about the charging for 6 car parks. That's been done. This paper is around the budget and the fees and charges for parking. So if you wish to say that you think the fees and charges for this parking is completely wrong, you can table something, and I'm going to ask Claire to sit on Lisa for a second. You can table something that says, we think charging for parking's wrong. For all the reasons that have been said by Councillor Nundy and Councillor Whiting, people shouldn't have to pay to go and pick up a Chinese takeaway or any other takeaway that is available, or drop their children at school, or go to the library or shop. You could say that you wish to remove that, and it doesn't go out for consultation. We will have one hell of a budget gap in millions. But you can do that. What is difficult to say is, actually, we're trying to find a way to undo a decision that another committee has taken.
Okay, if I accept that, then I'll take it the ultimate committee is full council. And it would not be, it could be within the power of full council. But I do feel that they've got it wrong on the free car parks, on the half an hour, and the recommendation is that this is progressed, and it may be up to members, but it's members to choose. They may not support this recommendation, and then that causes yet another problem. And it's all right saying we need to get a budget through. Yes, you do. But if members are so minded that they don't want to put a budget through, then if there's things in there that they don't like the free car parks, that may cause a problem in February. But we can cross each hurdle as they arise. I will listen to the debate, but I feel very uncomfortable about the free car parks being included. I think the process, I accept what you're saying, but I've been on many policy and resources where people have made amendments and they have been acted upon. But I accept what you're saying, and I think the next argument will be probably at full council, and we'll see how that goes. I'll leave it for that. I'll listen to the debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt, please.
Sorry, just at a point of order then, Chair. Just very quickly, is full council, does that have the authority to change the decision of the Environment Committee under the Constitution?
No.
No.
The committees, sorry, Chair.
No, that's fine.
The committees are standalone committees. the difficulty that you have with full council changing a decision of committee is full council would need to have all of the information that committee had to make that decision. Full council would have to have the opportunity, in the same way that the committee did, to ask the questions, to to scrutinise the officer's decision. This was an officer report put forward. Officers aren't allowed to speak at full council. So this decision has been made by a committee of the council. That is the committee system that we have. In the same way that full council couldn't, that full council can't overturn any decision of any committee. I'm not saying it's just that one.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt, please.
Thank you. I think any budget, there's going to be people that aren't happy. And as has been said, we have to make difficult decisions. What has been good, and I think this is the same as another budget today, there's been no real surprises. That was because of a leak, but this is because we've all worked together. And that is what's the difference of this budget has been. And I thank everyone that's been involved in the budget working group. From our group, Councillor Bowen, Councillor Booth has brought everything that has happened at those meetings back to us as a group. So we have had a lot of input into this already. There has been things that, okay, there may be groups that don't like, but I think everyone has understood that things have to be going there because of this making the budget work. We have heard many times about not using the reserves, and we are still using reserves even with this budget. And it's only through difficult decisions with charging for extra things that people may not want that we use less of those reserves. Otherwise, we're just going to keep spending and spending, and we can't keep doing that, as we it's obvious, really. So just thank you to everyone that has worked on this. It has been a better way of working for us as a group, and hopefully it will continue in the future. And by doing this as it has been done, we would hope that we'd get to a budget meeting and not have any issues. But if people do have issues, there are still opportunities. You can be looking at things and trying to put it forward. If, as has been said, you come up with something that's fair, and if you're going to scrap all charges in car parks, do so, but get the money from somewhere else to make sure the budget balances. If you can't do that, then don't bring anything forward because it's just pointless.
Thank you. Councillor Moore, please.
Yeah, thank you. Chair, I was just mainly speaking about sort of with Councillor Weiss and Councillor Nundy. This hasn't been out, we haven't consulted the public at all on this, whether we're charging in car parks, in the free car parks. The public has had no say in this whatsoever. They're going to get a traffic order, like a traffic on street, off-street parking notice or whatever to consult that they're being told the charges are coming in. So this committee has made a decision. I was at the committee and no one listened to the fact that there was a member of public there, saying the signatures, that none of the public had been consulted on this. I feel it's very unfair that as a council we're now saying we can do nothing where this committee has made this decision with no public consultation whatsoever. And what is this? What sort of council we're showing ourselves as? That we will just take decisions at committees with no public consultation, because we got in under 2.5 weeks or 2 weeks. There's 3,500 signatures. So what sort of result, had it gone out to public consultation, would you have got, and you would have been able to make an accurate decision? I think it's very sort of unfair of the council to make decisions without informing residents, even consulting. You're going out to consult on this budget, no one's going to, the residents aren't going to support it on the island because they're not being listened to. And this is where you don't get the people participate in consultations, because I've brought it up before. People say, what's the point in participating in the consultation? You don't listen. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to point out to members, first off, that you can only spend £1 once. £1 can be spent once. Now, let's be honest, we are talking about a few car parks. We've spent an inordinate amount of time talking about a couple of car parks. What about our homelessness budget? What about the fact that we want to have planning enforcement? And I guarantee if you put a public consultation out asking the people in Bourton or Faversham or Borden or Sittingbourne, do you want to pay for your parking? They'd probably say no. They'd like it free too. Beyond that, we are in a position where we have a compromised budget in front of us. You can see it's a compromised budget. Nobody is going to be happy with it. No one should ever be 100% happy with the budget when you are in a position whereby you are having to use reserves. I think well played to everyone that's been on the working group to develop the budget, and thank you to the officers for working with them so diligently over those months to come up to a budget that is in a reasonable position, assuming that government don't do something mad. I think it would be nice, and we come across this every single year, if government could actually tell us a bit before, 2 weeks before Christmas. I think a couple of years it's been sort of 2 days before Christmas, not even 2 weeks, what we're going to get in the settlement. A long-term multi-year settlement would be nice to have. And if the leader through lobbying is able to get some sort of commitment to that, that would be nice. We do have a lot of known unknowns. We don't know what the government funding situation is going to be. We don't know what LGR is going to do, or if LGR really will go through. You never know, so we can talk to our heart's content that, oh, it doesn't matter after 2030. Well, actually, we might still find ourselves here. And if we do, and we've spent all the money that's in the kitty, you're going to be making some real nasty decisions. We really don't want to be in the position of making decisions where we have to say, right, that's it, no non-statutory services, no planning enforcement anymore. That happened in Woking. Do we want to go down that route? I don't think so. So I think we've got a budget that we can consult on. We've got a budget that meets the needs now. We need that bit more information that we'll get over the Christmas period and running into January, but we can't leave it till then to consult. So now this is good for what we have now. Let's put it out there. Let's agree the recommendations. And finally, I think we've given the opportunity now to vote to have a scrutiny committee with cooling powers 2 or 3 times. And 2 or 3 times, most of the people in this room have said, no, we don't want one. I think you're regretting that now, aren't you?
Councillor Worcester.
Just quickly, Chair. Can I just confirm, because obviously there's been a couple of odd elements spoken about at the meeting this evening. As I was at the meeting, nobody was laughed at or laughed out of the room when this was being discussed at the Environment Committee. Also, as we've got the Director of Head of Service in the room, could you just confirm to me what happened to the petition that was handed in on the evening, please?
It's been scanned in by Democratic Services, passed to Parking Services so that it can be included within the off-street parking order consultation.
So just to confirm, it wasn't disregarded on any sort of level whatsoever? No, I didn't think it had been. So just to confirm those elements, because I would agree that there is lots in this budget that is compromised from lots of different places, and there are very hard decisions that this council will be taking. But that was a very long meeting. All members that attended that committee, I feel, worked very hard in terms of understanding the agenda item that was in front of them. A large amount of time was given to discussion, and I thank those committee members that did their job on the evening, even if the decision didn't go the way that everybody wanted it to go. That unfortunately doesn't happen all the time. get what we want all the time, but it's really important for those elements to be reflected accurately, I think. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this budget is a compromise. There are bits that I'm swallowing. And by the way, I was one of these people who found the 65p and the 75p to put in that meter for half an hour. What am I going to do for an hour's parking? You know, I mean, I could sit in the car and read a book in the car park because I don't need an hour, but, you know, I'm going to have to pay for it. Fair enough. I'll put my hand up, Chair, because the ship on shore keeps coming up. I know that this budget is about more than car parks, but this ship on shore keeps coming up. The reason the ship on shore car park was revamped, it was actually surfaced for the first time in about 30 or 40 years, was because members of the public and councillors wanted those vans and the caravans and all the other rubbish out of that car park. And the only way that we could get, you know who's 50,000 vans out of that car park was to put an order on it and make it a pay and display, which is why we made the order, we did the reservices and we put the machine in. We got those vans out. And by and large, they are not spread that far around Sheerness, touch wood. When you go to the library in Sheerness, there is a bay. 1, 2, 3. There's 3 bays outside the library. Other than that, you've got to go to the car park and pay to use the library in Sheerness, as has been said with the other parts of the borough. And what I thought that Environment Committee was about equalisation. About saying, well, you ain't got no free car parks down there, have you? Bad luck, we've got 20 and we're keeping them. No, we're not, we're playing fair. Because everyone who sat on that Environment Committee was sitting on that Environment Committee on behalf of Swale, not on behalf of a ward or anything else. You are appointed to sit on committees, including this one here, on behalf of the full council, on behalf of Swale Borough Council, and your decisions should be made in the interests of Swale Borough Council as a whole. And that was what the Environment Committee was all about. And loath as I am to raise, I'm not going to say any hope, but I've sat, since we started these committees, the rules and regs ain't changed that much. When did we start? 2023? 2022? Losing track of the years. There was provision when we set up the Communities Committee, which looked after car parking and car parking charges. There has always been provision for differential charging. And members of that committee have not bothered one iota to actually look into it. If you've thought anything, you've thought, oh, Martin, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do the other? Whereas back in the day when we had committees, Mr. Chairman, it was members of the committee, if they wanted something, they went off and done all the legwork. They're the ones that came forward and said, right, I've looked into this, I've done this, that and the other, and I'm now putting a proposal through. What happens these days is members, sit here and expect the officers to basically lay it on with a trowel for them. Not one member, to my knowledge, has gone away and done any homework about differential charging in car parks across this borough. That shows the interest. The interest is when the public start moaning, quite rightly, why should they pay when they've had it for free? Everybody else has had to pay. We're bringing everyone up to scratch. We could have looked at differential car parking charges for you, but we're too lazy as councillors to do it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. As we've had an amendment proposed and seconded, I'll speak to that. It's this committee that recommends fees and charges to full council, and as such we can amend and change what this committee wishes to send on to full council or out to consultation. We are here to approve the proposed budget consultation. Last year the amendment at full council was for 2 car parks on Sheppey. That would raise 38k, but now we have before us that 6 car parks are going to raise 35k. I'm not sure what the sums will actually come out as next year. But we'll wait and see. This car parking charges seems to be the biggest sticking point in the budget. I think it would go through quite smoothly without this, but yet again we're battling over this. We spent hour last year at Budget Council. We spent hours at Environment or Community talking about it. We're going to probably breach an hour at this point tonight. This is over 35k. I think we'd have already agreed the recommendations if this wasn't in the budget. I think what my colleague who's proposed this amendment was trying to say is that we note the proposal for fees and charges increases with the following words removed from fees and charges: Park Road, Queenborough, Little Oyster Minster on Sea, Library Car Park, Queenborough, and Halfway Car Park. Is that what you meant, Councillor Palmer? Through the chair.
Yeah, through the chair, I'll go for that. Can I raise a point of order as well? On section 101 of the Local Government Act 1972. Just to highlight that, under section 101 of the Local Government Act, a committee system, which we operate here, doesn't need to have scrutiny, quite correct. However, a committee is a delegated arm of full council. And full council has supremacy over a committee. And you can call in, and you can scrutinise, and you can change a decision of a committee. So I feel we need to either take this to full council or, as the amendment has been spoken to remove those from the budget line. Thank you.
Members, at this point, I'd just like to take an adjournment for, we'll say 10 minutes, please. Thank you. Thank you, members. We'll reconvene the meeting. And I'm now going to hand over to our Chief Executive, please.
So I've consulted with colleagues and reflected on the proposal that's been put forward. The schedule that is in the... so two things. We talked about last year, we took car parks out. Last year was a different situation than this year, as members will remember that last year's budget, there was not a policy for charging for car parks on the island. So therefore, it was a fee without a policy. So that's quite easy to take out. The fees and charges schedule talks about the car parks as an indicator. We don't have to propose that, we don't have to have those, and it is possible that we can take out all of the car park names and just have a short and long stay part. The Environment Committee has instructed officers to do the off-street parking order, which is the consultation about the charges. Taking the car parks out of the consultation does not take it out of the charging. It just takes it out of the consultation. There will still be a charge because that's the decision that's been made. So we can take... you can continue with the amendment, however, it doesn't change the budget and it doesn't change the proposal to charge for those car parks. You can take out all of the car parks and just have a long and short stay charge, which is completely legitimate. The same car parks will be in there if you take the names out. There is no legal requirement to say which ones you are doing. So it is up to members to do what they choose. However, it does not change the decision that has been made to charge for car parks. And if it is a long stay car park and full council agree the long stay car park charge and the off-street parking places order has that and that is agreed by committee, then that charge will be levied irrespective of whether it's been in the consultation or not. I hope that makes some sense.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer.
But the point of order was about the supremacy of full council who could overturn the committee's decision.
This paper here and this item is not about that decision. What full council can do is it can ask it could ask the committee to look at differential parking charges, but I would need to take some specialist advice from the monitoring officer. But what we're talking about today is this paper, the decision that was taken by a committee in relation to charging for parking, and this committee's ability to overturn that decision, and this committee does not have that ability. My understanding, and it is my understanding, is that full council cannot just overturn any decisions from of the committee, and also our constitution does talk about full council being able to revisit its own decisions within, but only after 6 months. After 6 months, unless there is a will, there is some specific wordings, but unless there is an agreement that it is the wrong decision and therefore it can be. We've had this with other decisions where this committee has taken a decision that was not in tune with a committee that a decision service committee made, and those say you yourself said, but the service committee has to have, has made that decision and the council needs to honour it. So, the advice I'm giving is coming from those experiences. I will get some specific advice. That doesn't change the amendment you're looking to put forward today. It doesn't change the advice I've given on that, which is very clearly that your options are, if you do remove it from the consultation, it doesn't remove it from the budget. If you choose to remove all of the car parks from the consultation, that doesn't remove it from the budget. It just means when we go out to consult, we're not specific. So that's the advice. So it's entirely up to members what they choose to do.
But just a point of clarification, because the amendment is about removing the fees and charges to them car parks as proposed. Nothing about we'll leave them into the budget. It's about removing them. It doesn't say for consultation. It note the proposals for fees and charges increases. And we're asking that certain car parks are taken out from them increases.
So two things. One is that this is to send the budget out to consultation. You are not agreeing the budget. It is not within this committee's remit to agree the budget. It is a full council decision which will be taken in February. The other thing is, if you wished and had the ability to remove parking charges under our forever way of working, amendments to any amendments to the budget have to be fully costed and have to have an in as well as an out. So if you wished to make a change to the budget like that, we would have needed to, and would still need to, understand how that is going to be funded. Again, that's a full council decision. That's not a decision for this committee. What this committee is deciding is whether this budget can go out to consultation. And the budget is the fees and charges schedule. All of those fees and charges schedule add up to the budget. If you want to change the fees and charges schedule, unless you change the budget as well, the budget goes out as the budget goes out, and there will be an issue. I think I've made it quite clear. I think it would be for members either to debate or take a vote on it. I don't think I can.
But just for a point of clarification, point 4, recommendation 4, approve the proposed budget consultation. So we could amend point 4 to remove the car parks that have been mentioned, which are currently free. So, because it's asking for an approve the proposed budget. Well, we can amend that, so
you can amend the budget, but you can't amend the charging for the car parks, because the policy decision to charge for car. So when we were at full council last year, we talked about, could full council set the policy for car parks? And it was very clear, and lots of members said, no, they can't. That is for the committee to do. And the amount of money was taken out, and it was up to the committee to decide whether we charge for car parks. And that was agreed by all members. The same thing goes the other way. The committee has voted to charge for car parks. You can take an amount out of the budget because you think that it's over-optimistic and we're not going to make that money. Officers would say that, in our professional opinion, that's not the case. But just by taking a line out of the budget, this committee does not have the ability to say that you are not going to charge for parking on the Isle of Sheppey. It's not within this committee's remit. That decision has been made by another committee, a committee of your peers who have had a debate, who have had information, who have had a vote on it. That decision is the decision that this council is working to. You can decide to remove things, but the off-street parking order will go out, because if you look at the resolution of that committee, that's what that committee have asked officers to do. And this committee can't undo the work of the other committee. That's just it. So you can change the budget. You would need to, as our protocols have always been, you would need to have you need to demonstrate that the amount of money that you are losing in this can be made up somewhere else, and how. And also, you can just take it out of the consultation. You can take all of them out. But if we agree the long stay and the short stay, then if, following the parking order, if that's it's agreed it's a long stay, they are the charges that will be levied. So we don't have differential parking. What full council may decide to do is ask a committee to look at differential parking charges. Full council is completely within their gift to do that. That is not part of this budget consultation currently, and it would be the ultimate policy on the hoof if you tried to come up with something like that now, because it's not your... The policy that we've consulted on allows for differential parking charges. However, that's got to go through the right committee.
Thank you. So we've got a proposal on the floor, duly seconded by Councillor Elliott. Yeah, Elliott Jays.
Thank you, Chair. So,
Sorry,
in fees and charges before us, we've got 2 car parks and put in long stay and 2 have been put in short stay. Where was that decision made? That wasn't discussed at the committee, it wasn't on the report for the committee, but it's before us tonight. That wasn't a decision members have made. Just wonder why that's in this part of fees and charges and not in the other part, and where that decision was made.
Martin, can you help us on that one?
Yeah, you're correct. The Environment Committee didn't debate whether something was long stay and short stay. Within my scheme of delegations is a delegation for the management of on and off street car parks, and we've made those decisions based upon the context that the committee saw. So within the appendix, the committee was context of how it's used, and given all of the discussion around people popping in, popping out to certain car parks, that's why, for instance, Halfway car park has been selected as a short stay. Now, clearly, that's what the off-street order consultation is for, because people might say, actually, it's much better. We all want to stay there the whole day, so therefore we think it should be a long stay car park rather than a short stay. So again, they've been selected on the basis of their context and our understanding of the usage, but that is something that people can feed back within the consultation.
Thank you.
Chair, can we just get clarification that there is a proposal on the table and what the exact proposal is? And I'd really like that we move to the vote on that proposal, because I'm really concerned that currently there is much more than this one topic within this report before members, and I don't believe that we can say that this has been adequately discussed by members more broadly, and I would like to hear members' thoughts on everything else that is contained within this report. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Councillor Palmer, could you just for clarity give us your amendment or proposed amendment?
Yeah, the amendment that
Sorry, microphone on, please.
Sorry. The amendment is that well, I call them the free car parks, be removed from the draft budget proposal. So the existing free car parks, Queenborough Library, Park Road, and the others that were listed. I'll have to go through there to have a look at it, Grafton Road and things like that, the library at Queenborough, that they are removed from the budget proposal. And I think Councillor Wise is probably right. It's probably easier to go to the vote very quick.
Yeah.
Then it gives you a clear picture how to move forward.
Exactly, thank you.
I'm happy to support that we move to the vote, but I'm still not clear. We need clear wording and about which of these recommendations it is proposed is being amended, because I'm still not clear on that and I'm not content to vote on that without that clarity.
Okay, just to spend £1 twice, that the 3 car parks that are currently free, which have been put in the budget proposal, the draft budget proposal, that these 3 car parks be removed from the draft budget proposal. Thank you.
So is that a new recommendation or an amendment to one of these recommendations? Just to clarify which one you are, I accept your wording, Councillor Palmer, but I just want to know which of the recommendations you wish that to change, or whether it's a recommendation 6.
Well, I think I originally said recommendation 3. I'd have to look at the recommendations again, but I believe I said recommendation 3. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members, so can I just confirm that you're all quite clear now with what the amendment is? Is there anybody that's unsure? Sorry, could you put your microphone? Thank you.
Sorry, we're the proposal, most of the recommendations are to note. The only one that, as far as I can see, is action is to approve the budget consultation, and we are asking that those car parks be removed from the consultation rather than the budget. Is that what we're saying?
If I may, Chair, I think Councillor Gold is correct, and probably it's recommendation 4 that to remove those from the budget. Well, it says consultation. It needs to come out, so it is recommendation 3 to remove those car parks that were free for the fees and charges increases.
If
you've got 0.
Okay.
So to help members, you're only noting the fees and charges, so you're not changing the fees and charges, you're noting them. You may choose to have the amendment that says approved the proposed budget consultation following the removal of chargings for the free car parks. So that takes it out of the consultation. It doesn't take it out of the budget because this is a consultation. The time to take things out of the budget is in February. This is saying, so this is a cross-party budget. If we go back to the olden days where it was a single party, lots of members disagreed with what was in whichever party it was, their budget, normally on parking, if I'm honest, but it was that. It still went out to consultation, and quite often members kept their powder dry until Budget Council, when all the amendments go in, and that's when the amendments go in that say, don't do this, don't do that. So what you're actually looking at here tonight is a consultation on the budget. You can amend number 4 to approve the proposed budget consultation minus whatever you want to take out. Then we won't consult on that, but it's still in the budget because it doesn't come out until members agree the budget in February. Thank you.
Councillor Gold.
Would it be clearer then if that section that we consult on are the charges for long stay and short stay car parks, full stop? And as you say, the decision of which car parks are charged for is taken by another committee. What we're being asked to do is approve a consultation for the fees for long stay and short stay car parks, and so that can go out. We're not saying at this point that we've taken car parks in or taken car parks out, but based on what Chief Executive says, that decision has been made elsewhere. We're not making that decision at this committee. We are making the decision on the budget side element of that, which is whether the charges for long stay and short stay for car parks, wherever they are. There are still free car parks across the borough. They aren't listed as being zero cost. So if a car park is designated as short stay, that will be the fee for it. It may, perhaps just clarify the issue that we're not talking about which car parks are in or out. If we take the names of all car parks out of this consultation, I'd be happy to vote on if that is the proposal, then that clarifies the issue.
No. I'm just going to bring Councillor Martin in quickly.
Yeah, I'm going to speak against the amendment on the basis that surely if we remove it from the consultation, we're taking away the opportunity of the people of Sheppey to feed back on the consultation as to whether those charges are acceptable and whether they're long stay or short stay. Therefore, it's a complete nonsense. Surely we want people to tell us in the consultation what they think of what is in the budget. We can't take it out here, so why would we take out their ability to consult? It's nuts.
Okay, Councillor Palmer, so you're...
I'm quite happy to withdraw the actual motion if Councillor Jay's is. Purely, I think we need to move on, but I will be looking at how to bring this to full council, because I believe that full council, and it's not been answered, that full council is supreme and can overturn the committee, a decision of the committee. So we can look at that policy of bringing certain car parks into charging, but probably the better forum is at full council.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
If Councillor Jay is all right with that.
Councillor Jones?
If I can speak to that, Chair. Yes, I'm happy, but looking at February's agenda last year for this committee, it says that the administration, that the Policy and Resources Committee recommends to Council that the administration's 2025-26 revenue budget proposal be approved subject to amendment. Can we amend it at February's P&R once we've seen the consultation?
Yeah, the amendments are proposed at full council.
But if P&R is making a recommendation to full council, can we not approve in advance?
If it's costed.
Yeah, so if you cost, so let's say that there's something in the budget that
Isn't
members
parking.
don't like. I'm not going to say anything particularly because there could be other things. If there was something, you could speak to, and we offer this to all groups, that you can speak to a finance officer. You have to, if you're taking something out or putting something in, you have to balance it. So you have to say how you can bring that amendment at Policy and Resources. The issue that you have is around if it falls. That's you at full council. It's rare that anybody does, but I'm almost certain there's nothing in the Constitution that would stop you doing that. Because the amendments are normally taken at full council.
Okay, happy that the amendment here is withdrawn.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. Or just to say that there's a budget working group where you can take it and all discuss it and bring it to the meetings. We haven't got to go hours again at another meeting. That would be good, wouldn't it?
Well said.
Yeah, we're meeting next Wednesday, Chair. We've had 5 of these meetings as well. Obviously, this will be the first opportunity to discuss this following the decision by the Environment Committee. So, I understand the meeting's next Wednesday, so there is an opportunity for the cross-party budget working group, which as far as I'm aware, all groups are still represented on. It can be brought forward at that meeting too.
Yep, thank you.
Can I just ask one point of clarification?
I'm sorry, Councillor, I can't keep letting you come back in. I've invited you in to speak, and we're going to move on. Thank you. Okay. Is there any other... Yeah. Okay, members, just in case any of you got any other issues to raise on the budget, then we've got members on, we've got officers online and within the room. So, Councillor Harrison, your hand was up first.
Just a quick one, Chair, because as you pointed out earlier, and we know from previous that the government very kindly tell us the day before Christmas what the grant is. And also thanks to members of the budget working group. I did my penance many times over the years, so I know what it's like. Have you got a budget working group set up PDQ after when we presume the announcement will be? I'm just thinking, I know officers are entitled to a very long rest over Christmas. You deserve it. Members deserve it more, to be fair, but but needs must. Sometimes you've got to bite the bullet.
We can resolve that anyway. That's no problem. Thank you. Councillor Jays.
Thank you, Chair. So looking at Appendix 3, the proposed changes to the budget, we've got non-achievement of savings, 100 grand. I assume that is that the ground maintenance contract? I think we as a committee and as a council should be pushing back on that. There's plenty of grass we don't need to cut. Members should be involved thoroughly in helping find that £100,000. and also the postal costs increase. We're in an internet age. We should be cutting down on how much postage we send. We should be pushing back on that. You know, we've got 5 months until this budget needs to start being implemented. There are two things we should really investigate pretty damn quick, and that will save us some money. Also on the saving assumptions, external grant review. So is that 20k this year, an additional 30k next year to make just 50k grant next year?
Yes. That's the proposals that came out of the budget working group.
Okay, so
20,000 for 26-27 and a further 30,000 for 27-28.
So an 80k this year and 50k next year, external grant. Okay, thank you. I'll come back in a minute once I've got to fees and charges, Chair, if that's all right. I don't know if other members wish to speak. I just want to scroll down.
Okay, Martin, did you want to comment on the grounds maintenance bit?
Yeah, I mean, this was a pre-agreed savings target within year at the 175, which was originally decided by members that there weren't going to be any extensions to the contract or any savings made. By the time it was back on the table to negotiate it, unfortunately, there'd been quite a major change in employment legislation. And as a result, the council had to swallow the costs in order to get the extension over. So the original savings target was based upon what we could do. Then employment legislation changed, and that's why we've been able to get it in at the 75. Obviously, we've spoken. There are lots of variables within the grounds maintenance contract. How we manage certain things change. We've agreed through the committee process how the specification would change and how the regimes would change, and that's what's brought about the £75,000 saving. But it means that because there was that pre-existing 175, that's the growth is the 100,000. Whilst I do agree that there are areas of grass that we can look to cut less, etc., we will do that naturally. However, we also take on extra pieces of land from time to time, and we've just taken on a very large piece of land that will need grounds maintenance moving forward in Stones Farm, and so actually costs are going to increase when we take on more land, probably more so than we can cut down. But that doesn't mean we won't stop looking at how we can change the regimes without too much impact to make further savings.
Thank you. Members, anybody else? Councillor Worcester.
Thank you, Chair. I know we come back to this every single year, but when I look at the drainage board, have we... I know that you were working really hard in previous years to kind of get that more regulated in terms of going towards central government to ask if those sort of things could actually be highlighted on people's council tax bills, which I thought was a good move. But is there a way that we can aid communication between SWAL and the drainage board to make it abundantly clear that, for example, it will lead to an increase in costs for SWAL if the drainage board figures continue to rise? In terms, I know they do good work. I sit on the drainage board, but there's quite a cost to that work for SWAL Borough Council taxpayers. Thank you.
Yeah, and to be fair, that's probably the best place to raise it at the drainage board meetings. But what I can say from my perspective, and certainly from a 151 officer's perspective, is we've been absolutely relentless. In fact, it was raised in the House of Lords last week. So it is still ongoing work. And once again, we get very, very little. But when you get some areas, you've had electricity bills increase from what was about £19,000, £20,000 to close on £500,000 in Norfolk and Rutland, areas like that. Well, then quite clearly you can see in terms of apportioning the costs and fees. But rest assured, I, for one, being a Yorkshireman, banged the drum very, very hard about pounds, shillings and pence for us, and certainly Lisa Fillery, our 151 officer, definitely does. So we'll keep pushing for that. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Wise, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. Just to comment on some of the detail within the fees and charges report in Appendix 5, members will see that there's a number of those that are colour-coded red because they're externally set. And that means we have no say over those at all in terms of cost recovery. There's still, because these are still duties on councils that we have to do through this regulatory function. Admittedly, not all of them. We may not have large casinos, for example, where we have to look at their licensing applications and license conditions and check that they're complying with those. But a number of those regulatory functions are for licenses that were set out in legislation in 2003. And they have not increased once since then. And quite clearly, every local authority is now subsidising that in effect, because really they should have been set out with inflationary increases year on year. Officer time is used on these. Are we really saying that the admin fees in effect that applied in 2003 are what people should be paying in 2025? And I, again, not that I'm trying to set you too much homework, would gently suggest that we write to the Minister. The government has recently done a licensing task force where they said that they would look at some of this sort of stuff. That's not going to take in, and hasn't taken in, the full scope of all of these licenses. People will be shocked to see that gambling establishments have not had licensing fees increase in 22 years. And there's a number of others that are set in there that are more recently introduced and duties put upon local authorities where there is no inbuilt mechanism to see those go up.
Thank you. And in short, the answer is yes. I certainly will write to Mr. but thanks for the homework, because I just need a bit more. Members, anybody else? Councillor Jays?
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad to hear you can play the drums. I just thought it was the trumpet or bugle you did. Going on the licensing point, they are now set at the maximum rate, but they weren't, and for some reason that is the maximum rate. This council wasn't originally taking it, but a few years ago in scrutiny we agreed to we asked the Cabinet to put them up to the full rate possible. My question, Chair, is on this fixed evening fee, if you turn up at the Leisure Centre just before 6 p.m. for a club or to go swimming, you plan to stay inside for an hour because they only run swimming for an hour in the evening. Would you now need to pay for 2 hours before, because you can't get half hour, you can't pay for an hour and a half, so you now pay for 2 hours before, and then you've got the evening charge for when you come out. So would it be £3.20 for the 2 hours you need, or would it be £5.70 for the 1 hour charge and the evening charge? No live maths?
Bit of live maths, Martin.
Can I just check? You said arriving just before 6 o'clock.
Yep. So say you arrive 10 minutes before, so you've got time to get changed for something.
Yeah. So you would buy the hour between. So say let's go specifics. It would be 5:55. Yeah. You would buy the hour to 6:55 plus the 5 minutes, and then the evening charge. Correct.
So what would cost you now? £3.20 is going to cost you £5.70. So more than 80% increase on that. Okay. Further down in fees and charges at beach huts, it mentioned we now have beach huts at Minster and Laysdown. I think for over a decade now we've had beach huts, so I don't think we need the word now in there. They're not new, they're old. Another point on memorial benches, I know the property committee agreed not to extend benches along Minster Leys, but you could easily fit another 100 in. I know that it says in the report there would be complaints, but and I'm not saying we make a lot of money off of benches, but you could easily get another 100 down the beach, and people contact local members every month because they've had family die and they want to remember them. So I think we should really be pushing our benches more. As I say, on beach huts, locations now at Minster Leys and Laysdown. Let's get the now out of there before we send this out to consultation. On bulky waste, we're proposing an increase. I look every time I bring this up, and if I wanted a bulky waste collection today, it'd be in 3 or 4 weeks' time. Who wants to hang on to their waste for that long? We're now proposing an increase. We really need sewers to get under control. We need more slots. It'd be a lot easier if people could have their waste collected within a week, 10 days. I really think we're not offering a great service, and now we're proposing an increase on it. I also note in here it says about bin repair. This was a charge from last year. It's going up this year. I've looked on our website. I can't see how you ask for your bin to be repaired. I can't see what you get from bin repair, whether it's you get a new lid, whether someone pushes 2 new pins in the side of it. 16 quid for 2 new pins would seem excessive, but I wonder if, through you, Chair, if our Head of Environment and Leisure could explain the bin repair charge.
Martin?
I think you've only asked me to explain that one, so I'll come in on that one. So bin repair, you're right, we put it in to the fees and charges for the ability to charge. We haven't set up the process yet for how that will work.
But we was told as members we was going to have a gentleman going around in a little van with spare lids and spare pins to go in the side, and right now you'd have to pay twice that price to get a new bin. We need that. We've declared a climate emergency, and we've just got bins going in the bin or in the recycling truck. We really need that ability to repair bins, and I don't know why we're 18 months into a contract and sewers aren't delivering it. This is what was sold to members when we was sold our one and only option of sewers. I'd really like to see that happen as soon as possible. There's no point raising a fee that we're never gonna actually charge. We really need to push that with sewers.
Thank you. Members, I don't see anybody else, and if I do, I'll cop a blind one, I'm afraid. So I'm ready to take this one to the vote. What I suggest is we can take the whole lot on block. So the items 1, 2, 3 and 5 for noting. Those in favour? Sorry, could I have a proposer first of all? Thank you, Councillor Wise. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Martin, thank you. So those in favour? Thank you. Those against? And abstentions? So those 4 items are carried, and then the item 4, which is to approve the proposed budget consultation. Could I have a proposer for that, first of all? Councillor Wise. Councillor Martin seconded. Are those in favour? That's unanimous, members. Thank you very much. Right, okay, we'll move on to agenda item 10 then, please, which is the Area Committees review, and that's in the hands of Janet. Officer, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In April this year, it was agreed at full council that a full review of the effectiveness of area committees should take place and report back to the Policy and Resources Committee. A member working group was set up, with the membership being the chairs of the 4 area committees. Between June and November this year, they carried out a review with the Chief Executive, analysing data on the area committee meetings between June 2023 and September 2025. They also carried out a public consultation and a member survey. At the summer round of area committee meetings, each chair led a discussion at their meeting to seek feedback on how the meetings could be improved and how effective people felt the meetings were. After considering all the responses and feedback, the member working group have developed 14 proposed recommendations, which are set out in the report presented to the committee this evening for consideration. I will now hand over to the Chief Executive, who may wish to add to this introduction. Thank you, Chair.
I think the only thing I would add would be the members that have worked on this with Janet, and Janet's done an awful lot of work on this, sent a consultation round to members. and I think the whole group were quite disappointed with the number of members that responded. It was low, and if we want area committees to be a success, then it really is incumbent on members to be engaged with it. And I think the numbers of people that we had responding didn't suggest that that was the case, and that was a disappointment. But the members and Janet has done an awful lot of work on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions or observations? Councillor Hunt, please.
Not a question, but I think thanks to everyone that has done the work on it. Personally, I would have just scrapped them anyway. I just think they're not working. But what has come forward as a recommendation from the group, I think, is a good way forward to try and give it a go to have something for residents. I think it's worth trying it. I just go back to the local engagement forums. They didn't work then. They haven't worked this time. We're just going to try something else that probably won't work either. But let's give it a go. What has been proposed and how it's going to work is worth a go.
Thank you. I concur fully. Councillor Worcester.
Thank you, Chair. So from personal experience, and I've been very lucky as the Environment Committee Chair that I've been able to attend area meetings all over the borough, actually, in support of various consultations, including the Elsie Wick consultation and the toilet consultation. And actually, I'm always impressed by actually how many people attend area committees. But I did want to just look at a couple of the recommendations, if that's okay, for my own benefit. So when it says area committees to be changed to council and residents forums, if we're removing that word committee, does that have any impact on decisions taken by the area committees? Will they still be able to recommend and do all the same work? Does that word committee mean anything in terms of our constitution, or is it just changing it to sound a little bit better, like a rebrand, if that makes sense?
Okay, so my gut feeling is that word committee just turns everybody off and away from it, but I'll ask our Chief Executive if there's anything that changes. If you remove the word committee as opposed to...
No.
I just
Good
have
answer.
to ask. The other
You just
thing that
concurred with me, by the way.
I wanted to add was that previously, before becoming a Swale Borough Councillor, I attended a few committee meetings here in terms of planning, and I'd just like to add, if the Sittingbourne Area Committee, or Forum as it's going to be called, is held at Swale House, are we going to really make sure that members of the public actually have access to the committee meeting or the meeting? Because obviously at area committees now, members of the public can just walk in and walk out. This building is different. You can't just walk in and walk out of it. So I do take the point it would be better in terms of room hire, for example, but making sure that meeting is accessible as possible, I think needs a little bit of thinking about, that's all. And I really think that some of these recommendations are very, very good. For example, the public forum item, I think, is a brilliant idea to bring that much earlier. And it would be really nice, for example, if perhaps that can also be coupled with a chair's update, like we do now at committee meetings, service committee meetings, so that there is actually an update, because often what happens is things go to an area committee and sometimes it's not reported back. So, for example, everybody had a real interest in putting an input into the Elsie Wick consultation. It would be nice to see that sort of information filtered back by chairs to make sure there's a two-way conversation, so that residents are interested in turning up if that's their only access to Swale work, if that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. And just briefly, in terms of if we get people visiting us at Sittingbourne Area Committee, we normally lock the doors just to make sure they stay anyway. Thank you. Councillor Wise.
Thank you very much, Chair. And as one of the area committee chairs who helped pull together these recommendations, very happy to see them put forward to P&R this evening. The point raised about use of Swale House as a venue for our Sittingbourne Area Committee meetings is a fair point, but we have held area committee meetings here before, and it's still the main determining factor for people is not particularly the venue, but it's what's on the agenda, and that's what gets people on. We had a busy meeting here on one occasion because we had the police in attendance for that. And actually, one of the bits of feedback that came through was that regularity and reliability when it comes to venue is actually quite important. So where we thought that moving the venue around was quite attractive, actually you have a core group that tend to attend these meetings, and moving around from one place to another actually was a bit disruptive to people trying to make the meetings. We've had people turn up at the wrong venue before, and Sittingbourne unfortunately has also lost one of the venues that we used to use. So I think hopefully using this place for the Sittingbourne area committees will help and provide a bit of certainty around that. And also with the savings made on room hire, that means that we can purchase the technology for the other areas where there is still a need for moving to different venues, and they've got a good choice of reliable venues for that. I think some of the other proposals, it's quite clear to link them back to the feedback we've had. That was part of the job that we did through this working group. Part of the resident feedback was that they didn't really understand what the committees were from looking at the name. It wasn't clear at all. And that's why there has been an attempt to come up with a proposal that hopefully makes it clearer. Also in that feedback, people said that one of the things that might get them along to meetings was knowing that their councillors would be there and having the opportunity to speak to them and raise issues with them and hear what they have to say about certain issues. So the proposed name tries to make it clear to people that this is that sort of collaborative space, and that there is an expectation that your councillors will be there. And as has already been said, it's incumbent on us to make sure we do as much as we can to attend these meetings. And that's why also when you look at proposal 3.6, I think ward members taking a greater role in leading on agenda items will give a greater sense of ownership of that, and also put them front and centre in these meetings rather than just passive observers to the meeting. And I also think there is still scope for these committees to do some really vital place work and collaborative work with community groups, businesses, and local residents. And at the moment, that's not really done. I think members are far too passive when it comes to the agenda items, and they need to start taking a bit more control over what they want to see on there. And hopefully that can come through by really listening to what it is that people are saying in and outside of those meetings. And I like Councillor Worcester's point of having a chair's update at the beginning. I think it's sort of covered a little bit in 3.11, where you have a "you said we did" section that could quite easily be incorporated into that, as well as any feedback that you may have from service committees or from consultations that the committees encouraged residents to participate in. So I think there is quite a bit of potential still, but it is incumbent on all of us to make sure that our relevant area committees, or if this is adopted, what their new name is, Councillor and Residents Forum, actually use the opportunities there. Ultimately, it rests on that proactiveness. Without that and without our input, these are just doomed to fail regardless.
Thank you. Councillor Bonny, please.
Thank you. Well, I sit on Western Area Committee. I actually think it's been quite useful. I do happen to know quite a lot of the people that turn up on a regular basis, but they do like being in the villages. And so from a Western Area point of view, I don't think it would benefit that committee at all coming here. In fact, what you might find is there's less attendance, quite frankly. And I do think it has achieved a number of things, certain things that the various areas and villages wanted addressed, and they raised, and I think it has been useful. But that's probably because those members have been proactive in taking forward those particular issues, and they have been followed through, and we will obviously continue to do that. But certainly from a Western Area Committee, and if there's anyone else here from Western Area Committee, I would value their opinion too. But I think we should stick with our villages. I wouldn't want to see a drop in attendance, and we quite like going around each other's villages and then going in the pub afterwards. So,
Thank you. Councillor Palmer, please.
Yeah, I actually agree with Councillor Bonney, and I think certainly in the Western Area Committee, I can understand the Sittingbourne Committee coming here, but I think it's worth going around the villages, sitting in the freezing cold with a coat on. But I think it is a benefit when you go round, you do have people who turn up, and some of the local issues that they bring up is well worth being there. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I'm not sure if it was Councillor Bonney or Councillor Wise, but I think it is indicative on all members to try to engage and get as many people there as they can, particularly with relevant issues that might be coming up. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to bring a Chief Executive in quickly.
Yeah, I would just bring, we're talking about Western Area Committee. If you look at the table that's in Appendix 1D, Western Area Committee has had 5 people attend. So, you know, I don't... So members of the public, yeah, 10 attend. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's 5 people attend over 10 meetings. So, you know,
are you talking members of the public, or are you talking parish councillors?
No, members of the public.
Right, okay, because we do have quite a lot of parish councillors attend.
But members of the public, you know, the fact that I think, as Councillor Wise has said, that when Councillor Stephen was on this group, I think there was the you know, people come to wherever the meeting is when there is an item that they're interested in, and in a village we still don't get members of the public, because for Western Area Committee, if you live in one part of Western and it's still quite a journey to somewhere, and in the, you know, along country roads, that does put some people off. And Councillor Palmer was right. When you have, Councillor Chris Palmer, when you have poor Wi-Fi and people can't get online, then they give up and then they don't bother going to a next one that might be somewhere that has got better Wi-Fi. So it is a problem that we have experienced throughout the area committees.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. 3.5, the venue for Eastern and Sheppey Area Committee meetings should not move. This is the only one I don't like, because if we go to the eastern end of the island, most people that we see there have walked there, because there's no way to get a bus if we hold the meeting up the other end of the island, and vice versa. So we do see a core of people attend, depending on what location we're at, and as can be seen by the length of our meetings, there's a lot to discuss. We've got the Pride in Place work coming up, which is all about Sheppey East. If we're going to hold our meetings just the western end of the island, then that's going to exclude a lot of the residents down there. So I think Sheppey is one that should roam. Perhaps we have the same 3 set venues, so that you know that this month we will be here, this month we'll be there, etc. And the only other thing I want to raise is we've had raised at our meeting, the Sheppey Area Committee, members of the deaf community, they can't hear what's happening on the screen because of sound quality. I know we've got in 313 about purchasing better microphones, but can we get a hearing loop in? We just need to encourage, if we want to encourage people to come in, we need to make sure we've got the equipment needed. And that was one of the feedback when we was doing the customer access strategy. They said about they need hearing loops at these sort of meetings.
Thank you.
I'm not suggesting that what you're saying isn't right about moving the venues. I think the only thing that I would say is at the Sheppey Forum, members there, not elected members like you, but members of the public from Eastern Sheppey were very keen that we didn't just use our normal Sheppey Forum, Sheppey Area Committee to talk about the Pride in Place funding, that we actually had specific meetings in the place that didn't talk about other things about the rest of the island, that talked about that, and we committed to doing that. So even if Sheppey Area Committee doesn't move, we will be doing an awful lot of targeted work, so people will know. There was, and I don't wish to speak for the people of Eastern Sheppey, but there was a feeling at the Sheppey Forum raised by certain, members of the public that everyone's going to want Sheppey East on their agenda, so to try and kind of elongate it. I think that's right, Councillor Moore. So what we were being asked to do was very specific, targeted, away from the area forums. And I think, so I'm not saying we shouldn't do what you're saying. I just think it's right to feed back what the residents said at, it was only a meeting, and it was held in Bluetown, so it wasn't even in the East, but that was the very clear message that we got.
Thank you. Do you want to come back?
Yeah, my only other point was on 3.2 about cutting the December meeting. I'm sure that if something urgent was to come up that really required a meeting, the chair would still have it in their powers to call an extraordinary meeting around then. So I'm happy with that one, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Yep, just to say a thanks to the officers involved on this one. It was a long and arduous process, I think. Yes, very disappointed in the lack of engagement from members on the consultation. Possibly the lowest consultation percentage response that we've ever had on anything, which shows the disdain that clearly most members seem to have for doing any work. What I would ask is that 3.6 is really taken on board. So the best thing that we had at the Eastern area over the last year was Councillor Terry Thompson presenting on the Blean project, the expansion of, or potential expansion of the ONB. Having somebody who, as members, we do not always get to show our passions and our understanding of key issues in the detail that we have. Certainly, I think the Eastern area would have probably benefited over the last year from presentations on Highstead Park from the members from Tenham, perhaps. Those sorts of things are things that people can bring, and that's why that suggestion is in there. If you've got something that you have key knowledge in and a key passion on that is of interest to the public, it should be on those agendas, because it's the most free forum that we get at any point to speak with our residents. It's probably a last chance for these in any form. So if they don't work next year with these changes, I don't think we'll find a way of making them work. So beyond that, please do support those recommendations. And just for Councillor Jays, it does say where possible. So if the chair and the committee are really keen to keep moving around, you can. It's just we're suggesting you don't.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Palmer, please.
Yeah, just to echo Councillor Bonney and Councillor Martin's things, really. I think it very much depends on the agenda. I know we went out to one in Rodmersham where Monique had organised some correspondence and information about Highstead Park, and there were loads of people there, online and actually in the room. I know when we were doing the waste scrutiny stuff, that got us a few more people in because it was affecting the residents, so they made sure they turned up to have their say. I'm just wondering if there's any way we can invite residents to write in and suggest specific items that are important to them. I know the Sheppey ones are always very well attended. I think it was standing room only in the large hall when the waste scrutiny and seashells were on the agenda. It was absolutely ram-packed. And the residents do like to have their say.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, just a comment on locations and Western Area Committee. It's really probably what Larissa had said as well, that people, especially from the Meads, don't want to go all the way out to Bredgar and Rodmersham. I mean, really, it's not even the western area. And I think that's probably something that maybe even the Meads is in the wrong one. Maybe we should be having it in Sittingbourne, because that's where residents would probably be looking at more. I think at the time we discussed it, it was western area because there's Bodmin Parish Council, which is in that area. But I don't think the Meads really is getting anything from being within Western Area Committee. But just looking at it, we don't move to all the different places. I don't think we've ever been to Upchurch, we haven't been to Iwade, I don't think we've been to the Meads. And not because of not trying, but the venues aren't available when we've been trying to do it. So unless you're moving around to all these different places, you're not going to achieve what we're trying to do with being out there. So you may just as well be in one place where people know where you are. And I think residents probably would want something in one place in their own villages every single month to be able to do that. So being at Swale House, where everyone knows where you're going to be going, not travelling across the borough to go to a meeting in a central place, then it's better.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. I have attended these over many years in various iterations. I'm inclined to agree with Councillor Hunt. Looking at this Appendix 1B, the two Sheppey area committees, which were the most well attended by members of the public, was one meeting where residents turned up to harangue councillors about parking charges, and the next one, there were a fair number of people there to support seashells, but there was also a fair number of people there who had mini vans or camper vans, whatever you call them, on the shingle bank that we were discussing having charges for. So there was another haranguing match there. The best area committees that we've had on Sheppey have been the ones where we discuss a topic of interest to residents. It isn't about haranguing, it's about providing information. And the last one that we had was organised by Councillor Truelove on all four committees, to be fair. He arranged for the education lady at KCC to go around to all the four areas and brief us on how the system works, blah, 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 blah. She was fantastic. What she didn't know about education in Swale, in Sheppey, you'd think she was a Sheppey person, she knew that much. You could have put on a matchstick. She was really, really good. And the public appreciated the information that they were given. It wasn't about, oh, let's vote on this or let's vote on that. She was trying to explain how the whole system works. Now, that was a packed meeting, and it wasn't about what we can get. It was about information exchanges. And many moons ago, when we had when we were talking about changes to the education on Sheppey, the first or second time, the meeting that we had down at the college opposite the station, that was packed with members of the public. Whether there's an issue where members of the public are going to get something out of it, I don't mean something that's, tangible, but actually information, which is so sadly lacking. You can get all sorts of rubbish and lies on social media, but actually getting it from the horse's mouth, from somebody who knew so much about it. And to be fair, that meeting that Rog organised for the area committees on education, I said, do you not think, Mr. Chairman, this has been such a success education on the Isle of Sheppey? Would you not think it'd be a good idea to have the health people down to explain about health on the Isle of Sheppey? And the chairman turned around and said, no, I'm having a discussion on it at Minster Parish Council. We don't need a discussion here. But members of the public had actually stood out, and it wasn't Elliot in front of me, because I think he agreed. No. He's no longer with us. But members of the public actually stood up and said, oh yeah, great idea. And no, the chairman said no, knocked it on the head. But that would be of interest to members of the public, so that members of the public can say, yeah, but why aren't I getting this? And why can't I access that? Not just on Sheppey, Sittingbourne. You know, it's an issue of interest. And with all this neighbourhood health malarkey, you know, residents need to know how they can access this sort of stuff. And I guarantee, I mean, OK, you've got to have a good venue, but that's the sort of thing that you can get snippets online, but actually having the horse in front of you, giving it large and telling you exactly what's what, you know, is like gold dust. And that's what we need to hold on to. But, yeah, meetings for the sake of, oh, gosh, we've got a meeting coming up. What can we talk about? Well, the meetings should follow the subject of interest to people, not the other way round. Oh, gosh, we've got a meeting. What can we put on it? Thanks, Chair. Thank you.
And finally, Councillor Worcester.
Really quickly, Chair, I'll just say that two really quick points. One is that I do think we're missing a trick with area committees on the stats that have been provided. Parish and town councils are there to represent their residents, same as we are. And actually, when one member of a parish council turns up to an area meeting, they're not just bringing themselves, they're bringing the 12,000 residents that they represent. So, for example, maybe a good way of sharing information from area committees is actually to simply add clerks of the relevant towns and parishes into being able to be sent the meeting minutes for the area committees, so that towns and parishes can feel, even though they don't have voting rights on area committees, they could help us share the news and encourage that two-way conversation that I feel we need. Because my first representation of an area committee was exactly that meeting that Roger Truelove set up, where I attended all of the area committees as a governor for Oasis and was absolutely able to represent that school, good or bad. It had good points. It obviously didn't have some good points too. But the point is that that was always what we assumed the area committee was going to be for as well. Not just for SWAL to be top down, but for SWAL to be led bottom up as well, to have those inputs from organisations that aren't at the moment represented at SWAL Borough Council meetings. For example, I will highlight the good work of Sheppey.
Can I just highlight something, Councillor Worcester? Can I just interrupt and highlight something? You said to me it'd be very quick.
Agreed. Maybe it's the cold talking, but it needs to work both ways. And we can't just dismiss towns and parishes and say because we only had one member from a town and parishes, those one members come with a backing of all their residents. Thanks.
Thank you. Points well made. Thank you. Okay, members, could I have a proposal? Councillor Wise, could I have a seconder? Councillor Martin? And we can take all three recommendations. I think those in favour? Those against? And abstentions? So that is all three carried unanimously. Thank you very much indeed. Oh, sorry, one abstention. I do apologise. Not quite unanimously. Thank you, members. Thank you, Janet. We now move on to agenda item 11, which is the South Thames Gateway Building Control Partnership Business Plan 2026 to 2029. And I think that's in the hands of Joanne. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Many of you will recall a regular appearance of this paper around this time of year. SWAL has been a partner authority in South Thames Gateway Building Control for almost 2 decades now, and as part of the partnership agreement, the Joint Thames Gateway Building Control Joint Committee updates the business plan for the next 4 years on a rolling basis early in the autumn, refers it to each partner authority for comments and sign-off, and meets to agree it each December. So this is part of that process. There are 2 key points that I'd like to draw to your attention this year. So the first is procedural. The joint committee meeting that was set to approve the plan was not quorate, and an alternative formal meeting was not able to be arranged within the required timeframe. So as an alternative, an informal meeting was held, and it is that meeting which approved the business plan for consideration by the partner authorities. Each partner authority was present at that informal meeting, and each has accepted the recommendation despite its informal origins, given the circumstances. So they're all following the same process that Swale is. The second key point that I'd like to highlight is that a relatively significant budget increase has been approved by Joint Committee in recognition of the industry pressures that are set out in section 2.4 of the report. There were two funding models set out in the exempt appendix to this paper, and Joint Committee members debated and agreed option 2 as the preferred solution to keep the partnership the most viable concern. So this is the recommendation before you tonight, and that has been reflected in the budget papers that you've already debated this evening. 3 further quick points that I'd like to highlight. So number 1, officers and Joint Committee members are confident that the service we receive from South Thames Gateway Building Control is robust and that a partnership approach remains effective, given in particular industry staff shortages, the requirement for out-of-hours support and economies of scale. Members have debated recommending at the next Joint Committee that any in-year surplus is returned to the partner authorities in recognition of the proposed increase for next year, rather than being added to reserves, and this will be considered in December. And finally, there is currently a live government consultation on building control charges, notices and certificates, and STGBC are preparing a sterling response, in particular with regard to the full cost recovery element of the consultation, setting out recommendations for amending this to be better reflective of actual costs incurred, which it is hoped will have a positive budget impact in future years. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. I have no hesitation in supporting this and, well, it says provide comment, but proposing the recommendation. I have supported this since she decided that building control was, really, really good for the private sector to get involved in. And so she took it off of, she decided to open it up to the private sector. You know who I'm talking about, of course. And that is why we decided that in the end to go off to a South Thames, join with colleagues, because it is very important that we have a robust service, not least to pick up the mess from when other people fail. And I know that one of the areas on the Isle of Sheppey, the old building control person who retired before this happened, walked past this site and said, if that was Swale building control, those footings would have been 30 foot deep instead of 10 foot that the private sector are allowed to get away with, because the private sector are not observed at every key moment. Our guys and girls say, right, before you do that, I want to be here to watch. Before you do that, and if you do it, you're going to have to redo it when I get here. But with the others, it was one man and his dog who looked after the whole of the southeast, and well, you get what you pay for. I suppose the insurance pays if people complain, and I'm really annoyed on behalf of those people who buy brand new houses with all sorts of problems, frankly, because they've used these types of people. But anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying I fully support this. Yes, I know there's an increase, but it is, when we have a problem, it more than makes up for the amount of money that we are paying out. And I know that they are looking at, and we heard earlier about apprentices and training people up and all the rest of it, and that is the way forward. But no hesitation whatsoever. I've supported it since the start, and I'm not going to stop now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt.
Thanks, Chair. I've got no issues with it as well. I'm surprised looking at it as 26, 29, because I thought it seems like we discuss it every single year with a business plan coming forward, but obviously it goes quick. But yeah, no issue with it. The only thing I would say is, obviously this is residents' money that's used to go into this, and a lot of residents don't even know it really exists unless you go down planning applications and you get to know who they are. But I don't think residents or many people realise that they do with dangerous structures, and if there is problems, who do they go through? People don't know. So one thing I would just like to feedback is maybe if it can be taken back, is they do a bit more to promote what they do, where the money goes, and how people, how residents, make sure that they know that they're there and when they need to go to them in certain situations. Because if they don't promote that, especially when there is competition, people will go elsewhere because that's where they think. But we need to do more to let people know that they're there and what they do.
Thank you, and I agree with that wholeheartedly, and also say it's incumbent on us as members as well to get that message out there, because quite clearly they don't. Joanne?
Thank you. If I can just come in on the time frame of the business plan, it's a rolling 4-year document, so you do see it every year. It hasn't been 4 years since you last saw it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bonney, please. Is it on the blue paper just before we go in?
Yeah, but
Right,
we might not have to go into closed session. Well, I'll ask the question without being too specific.
Okay.
But I suppose, so is looking at the report, I think there is the noting generally of there's been a contraction in the market from an income perspective. And that's not really a surprise. I think given where the economy is going and what happened today, I don't think we're going to see an uplift. So I suppose as the numbers we've got in here for income, where I've got cause for concern is how robust we think those numbers are. Because obviously that has a fundamental impact with the income we get in, netting off against the cost, and obviously acknowledging in here that there is competition. We're not the only kids on the block. And also is a note on here around dangerous structures, and I think we can all think of some that are not too far from this building that drive us crackers, that where we've had cause to call out our own building control because bits are dropping off onto the highway. And it is interesting to see, but there is one particular borough, and it's not us, that has a huge number of enforcements compared to everybody else. Is that because they're really proactive? Or is there something amiss there?
Okay, so I mean, some of those things, because I sit on this board, I can probably tell you that there are likely to be some significant incomes generated in the near future from developments in other areas, not particularly in Swale at this stage. And when you're describing the enforcements, they have been very specific around that particular authority. So not that they've been particularly engaged or arduous or whatever in terms of actually driving it through, but they've had some very significant issues that have been flagged by the public actually in the first instance. So that's where that comes from.
That's bike.
Yeah. Sorry if I stole your thunder, did I? Okay, Councillor Palmer.
No, thank you. I'm quite happy with it. I think Councillor Harrison proposed it, didn't she? So I'm quite happy to second it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members, those in favour? That looks unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. And guess what? That concludes the business. Thank you all very much. It's we did get bogged down a little, but we got there. Thanks to the officers in particular, to the Chief Executive in particular, thank you. And to you as well, Joanne. And of course,